A1C. Her hemoglobin A1C back in August was 8.8%, and she was on just metformin for her type 2 diabetes. And she's only just started seeing me for the lifestyle medicine just in the last couple of months, actually. So not even, probably towards the end of September, I think, is when I first started seeing her. And she's not even doing it 100% yet, because her and her husband are still working on it. But she's, making good progress, and she's lost 27 pounds since September when she started seeing me. And I just got her A1C back today, and it went from 8.8% to 6.2%.
Wow.
Just since August. And all she's on is 500 milligrams of metformin twice a day. So just with, mostly going towards a more plant-based diet, she went from 8.8 to 6.2%. So that's pretty impressive.
Nice.
I got to give her that good news today.
Well, that's why we're doing this, yes?
Yeah.
So we're recording this session, and it's our first session, and Scott, you're going to take the lead. So whatever you'd like to do, and I don't know if anybody else wants to share if they're new to the class and why they're coming.
Yeah, we can give it a few more minutes so more people can kind of log in here, and before I start my formal presentation and do my introduction here.
Okay.
Anyone else has anything to share, or is new to the classes, wants to introduce themselves, feel free.
Scott, I have a question.
Yeah.
About the website. I've been trying to get it to where all I have to do is go to it. I bookmarked it, or I put it in bookmark. Other than that, how do I do? I mean, is there a icon or something I have to have, or what?
Well, it depends on
the email.
That depends on what your web browser is. If like here, I'll share my screen here. So like I have Google Chrome here is my browser, but you could be using, I don't know if you have a Mac or a PC, but you can either use Google Chrome, or you can use Safari is another here's Safari, or Google Chrome is the different browsers. So if you click on, it's not pulling up here.
Okay, so click on, I have Chrome and Google.
Well, I could show her how to do that on, you're going to use Google, you're going to show her?
Yeah, or you can go, so yeah, if you, like I have it bookmarked here, but you can also just get it from the class website. So here's the class website, and here's the livelifestylemedicine.com. So you can just type it into Google or on your search bar or whatever, but depending on your browser, you can save it. Like here it is here, up here on, this is on, move this. Here's like the favorite star. You could click on it here, and you could do add to reading list. This is through Chrome, but I know with like Safari, you can if you have a smartphone or whatever, you can save it as an icon on your phone if you want. But yeah, maybe unless Charlie has some other ideas of how to save it. Otherwise, you can just access it off the website, or just save it as a favorite is how I usually say to do.
Okay, that's what I've tried to do too, and it's just not. I don't know, maybe I'm doing something wrong, I don't know.
So let's take a look at this one more time. You can follow along, and you can go to, what is your browser? Is it Chrome, did you say?
I have Chrome and Google both.
Well, Google's a website.
Google.
Google's just a search engine.
Yeah. So if you want to go to Chrome.
Okay, just a second. Okay, I've got
Here's
Chrome.
Google Chrome, and you click on that.
Mm-hmm.
And up comes Google, right?
No, not on my Chrome.
It doesn't do that. So what you do is type in google.com.
Gotta get rid of this recipe.
Or you can go to this line up here. Instead of google.com, you can say live
Lifestyle.
lifestyle medicine.com.
Uh-huh. All right, now it did bring up Google. So, okay.
So if you just type in livelifestylemedicine.com at the top, you're on the page. And then you go to this star like Scott told you and
Uh-huh.
add it to your reading list or to your bookmark.
Okay, right. That came up and I tried to add it to says bookmark. I've tried adding it to that or even to my favorites. And so how do you get to go to your
How do you get it to what?
go to your uh, okay, let's see. Nope, not it.
It's okay. I mean, you guys can,
We'll play with it later.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
There might be
That'd be-
other people trying to figure it out too, so it's okay, but we should probably,
yeah.
all right.
Okay, anybody else new? Well, before we go on, maybe there's someone who's been to the class who could share with the new members why you keep coming back. I know we have 38 people in the room, so a few people have been to a few classes.
I'll share.
Okay, Vonda.
It's been about 23 months since my husband and I and my son switched to eating this way. And I feel like I found the diamond of classes of information to go to. And we have just learned enormous amounts of information about how to eat. And I feel like I just come back here. This is my family.
Great, so we'd
Well-
love to hear that.
We do. We love to hear that, Vonda. Thank you.
You're
Anybody else?
This Dolly.
Yeah, Dolly?
I've only been to 3 or 4 classes and I've noticed just a little bit that we've started trying. I've noticed this big improvement in my A1C and I'm hooked now. I just want to keep going.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And we hope that's encouraging to those of you who are just logging on and wondering, you know, why should we come to these classes? And we've had over the years, quite a number of them. There were out of the hundreds into the thousands of people who have taken the class. Not everybody is continuing doing completely everything what the science shows, but those who really follow it most closely are getting maximum benefits. But like Scott said, just even starting on the journey can improve your health. And just like Dolly said, just starting has improved her. So we encourage you to keep coming to classes, keep learning.
It's like Sandra raised her hand.
Yeah, I was already trying to do this on my own and felt like I was floundering and not knowing where to go. So for me, this has just been clarity and a much more vivid path for me to follow, and plus the support to stay on the path and to know what's right and what's wrong. And I mean, you know, not right or wrong, but what's best, the best way to go. So for me, it's the support and the clarity. And I knew a lot. I thought I've learned a lot since I've been here.
Great, thank
That
you.
does our heart good, of course. Thank you. And again, I hope that's encouraging to those of you who are new to the classes to understand why you want to keep coming back, at least for a few classes until you make a decision. Is this going to be valuable for you? Anybody else? Well, tonight we're excited to have Scott do his introduction, and unless he has something else, he'll go ahead and begin the meeting, and maybe there'll be time for some questions and stuff at the end.
I see Cheryl raised her hand. You have something real quick, Cheryl, before I start?
I'm sorry. I keep coming back because you guys, the presentation and the information, I have found it to be the truth. And it's because of it being the truth and what you're saying has helped me because I've been told so many untruths. So I appreciate the clarity and the truth that you both bring out. It's wonderful.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Yes, thanks.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen here.
I'm gonna go ahead and mute those who are not muted yet. I think there's only one. And then when Scott's done, you're more than free to unmute yourself and speak up.
All right, and is my volume okay? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you quite well.
Okay, great. So my name's Scott Wagnon. I'm a physician assistant at Oregon Medical Group. And welcome to the classes. I kind of changed the name from food, before it always said food/lifestyle medicine introduction or food lifestyle medicine classes, but I'm going to change it to live lifestyle medicine. My wife Angela came up with that because we were trying to figure out a new domain name for the class website. So some of the other ones were taken already, but livelifestylemedicine.com was available. So we renamed it that. So that's why that's changed, and it'll be changed on the group email list. And anyone that's new to the classes, if you want to get on the group email list, you can email me. I have my email in the chat. It's also on the website for the classes to get on the group email list. I send out an email every Sunday with the link to the class and the website and some other information every week. So I want to give a little bit more of my background before I kind of get started. So I was born and raised here in Eugene, and met my wife here. And when we got married and had our first child, we moved up to the Portland area. I was working on becoming a paramedic, and so I finished paramedic school up in the Portland area back in 1993, and worked as a paramedic in Portland for 10 years. And then worked on my undergraduate and wanted to go to PA school. So after 10 years as a paramedic, I realized I wanted to learn more medicine, do more, kind of more on the medicine side as opposed to the fire side. Because in Eugene, as you know, to be a paramedic, you have to be a firefighter, and I kind of wanted to go more the medical route. So I went to PA school up at OHSU in Portland and graduated in 2005. Worked up there, and then a bunch of different specialties and things. And then in 2015, moved back to Eugene. Once my youngest son, so we have two boys, my wife and I, Angela, two boys. And when my youngest son graduated high school up in the Portland area, we moved back to Eugene. So that's kind of my background with that. And I'll tell you a little bit more as we go forward. So my story here in relation to these classes starts in 2012, in the summer of 2012. So that's me there. So I actually used to race bicycles. I actually went to Olympic trials in 1988, raced on a team in Spain back in 1990. So I was a professional bicycle racer. And, even after I was done racing, I was still really into long distance cycling, recreational cycling. Did some duathlons and got into running as well. And in this summer of 2012, a buddy of mine, we rode our bicycles from Eugene to San Francisco in 6 days. So we were really into doing really physically challenging things. And so 6 days, we rode almost 700 miles. In 6 days, we rode down the old Highway 1 down the California coast there. And this is the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco. So it was a really, 130 mile days on the bicycle and all of that. And so in this particular year, in 2012, I rode my bicycle 7,000 miles that year. And so I was really physically fit. But the reason I show this picture and why this is part of the story is because even though I was physically fit and could do these physical challenges, I really wasn't that healthy. And I knew I wasn't that healthy because as a medical provider, it's kind of a blessing and a curse at the same time, because you understand where your health's at because you see it through your own patients. And then you see how your patients have health problems and you see how they progress over the years. And now I've been a physician assistant for 16 and a half years now. And so you actually can see what happens to patients over time. So in this picture, even though I had ridden all those miles, I had borderline high blood pressure, I had high cholesterol, I had heartburn every day, I had irritable bowel syndrome symptoms every day. I was in the pre-diabetes range, so my hemoglobin A1C, a lot of you probably know what that means. Is it's a percent number, hemoglobin A1C. Mine was 6.2% at the time, so that's in the pre-diabetes range. So 6.5% and above is diabetes, and then 5.7 to 6.4 is pre-diabetes or at risk for diabetes. So I was at risk for diabetes, the blood pressure, the cholesterol, the heartburn, the irritable bowel, and I was actually, even though I don't maybe look that heavy there, it's kind of marbled in everywhere. I have, quite a bit of body fat on me. I'm actually 218 pounds in that picture. Now I'm 172 pounds. So that's, 46 pounds heavier, even though I was doing all that exercise. And so that was what my health was like at that time. And I realized, well, if I want to get healthy, it's got to be what I'm eating. It's not lack of exercise. I'm getting good sleep. My lifestyle was healthy except for the nutrition aspect. And so that prompted me at that time to start studying nutrition. I actually got graduate level textbooks from Oregon State University, studying nutrition, went on Medline, started doing, searching for the literature, the studies and the literature on nutrition studies. And because, one thing, and Charlie will talk about this when he does his introduction next week as well, is that we, in medical school, PA school, we don't learn anything about nutrition. We learn, what's a fat, what's a protein, what's a carbohydrate, some a little bit about nutrient deficiencies and some really rare things, but we don't really learn clinical nutrition or really anything valuable about nutrition, and it's really sad. But one thing that we do learn really well in medical school and PA school is how to evaluate studies. So epidemiology, we learn about what's the structure of a good study, what's a bad study, levels of evidence and things like that. So we do get good education there. So I use that skill set to actually learn about nutrition. And when I came out the other side of that, I was like, okay, I should be eating a mostly whole food plant-based diet. Okay, what does that mean? Okay, that means I should center my diet around whole plant foods, fruits, vegetables, beans, legumes, nuts and seeds, potatoes, sweet potatoes, mushrooms, intact whole grains like brown rice and oats and quinoa, bulgur, amaranth, farro, all these whole plant foods. And that's what I should be mostly eating. And that's what the studies really showed, probably 90 to 95%. So in that direction. And so I was like, okay, I'll start moving in that direction. I had no interest in becoming a vegan or anything like that, because I have German roots, a lot of German background, and I love my cheese and sausage and things like that, and some sweets and things. And so I was like, looking at the science, I was like, okay, I'll move in that direction. And so I did. And after a year later, after this picture was taken, I dropped 46 pounds. I dropped my cholesterol 100 points. My total cholesterol went from 210 to 110. My LDL bad cholesterol went from 105 to 50. So I cut my cholesterol in half. My A1C that was 6.2% dropped to 4.7%. My heartburn went away. My irritable bowel went away, and I felt amazing. And in 2013, the year after this, instead of 7,000 miles on my bicycle, I only rode 3,000 miles on my bicycle, just because I was busier with things, and I wasn't doing these really long, as much of the long distance cycling. And so my mileage really went down. But despite all of that reduction in exercise, I was still exercising a fair amount, but it was the food that I fixed. And so all those health problems went away when I fixed the food. So I just wanted to kind of leave you with that as far as my background. And so when I saw what happened to me, I started to educate myself even more. I was recommending these same dietary changes that I did, for my patients. And I started having to take patients with diabetes off their insulin, people off their blood pressure pills because their blood pressure was dropping too low, take them off their insulin, off the other diabetes medications because their blood sugars were dropping, and people were getting huge health benefits. So it really emboldened me even more. And then over time, it's been, it was 9 years last month since this, and because I really started the change in December of 2012. And so as I transitioned more and more, my taste changed over time, and to the point where even though I was still eating that first year, I was still eating some animal products and some processed foods. I had achieved my health goals essentially, but over time for me anyway, and it's different for everybody, is I started to lose my taste for meat and dairy products and the oily foods and the sugar, things that were really sweet, because my taste just changed over time, even though I never planned to go all the way and be completely vegan or anything. That wasn't part of my plan, but just my taste changed over time, and I just didn't care for those foods anymore. So so I really don't eat those things anymore. But my point is just that, hey, you go on your own journey and you look at the science like I did, and we share that with you here in these classes, and you can get the same benefits, similar benefits to what I got and many of my patients get. Okay, so I kind of hear where I came from, and then I just want to go over, this is a new slide I've added, kind of the scope of the problem, the problems that I had with the high blood pressure, the diabetes, the pre-diabetes, the cholesterol, heart disease, all these things you hear about. I just want to run through some of these statistics here, the scope of the problem. So this is actually just came out. The CDC just did an estimate for 2021 numbers, and it's similar numbers to the previous years, but 659,000 people are going to die from heart disease, or died from heart disease in 2021 is the estimate, which is about where it's been. And 608,000 people died from cancer. So there's your number one and number two killer right there, heart disease and cancer. And we have classes about each of these. And so that's over 1 million people, 1.3 million people every year die from those top two killers. So it's almost 50% of all deaths in our country come from those top two killers. And they're completely lifestyle diseases. They're almost completely preventable and reversible. It's thought to be 80 to 100% preventable and reversible with heart disease. Cancer, somewhere the studies where we have now is somewhere close to 40% of cancers could be prevented and potentially reversed with optimum diet and lifestyle, because some are more associated with lifestyle than other cancers, mostly like breast cancer, prostate cancer, colon cancer. Those are the big ones that have a lot of influence over what we eat and lifestyle. And then in 2020, 34.2 million people in the United States with diabetes. And in 2020, 88 million people with pre-diabetes. So if you look at that, that's 120 million. It's almost half the population of the United States has either diabetes or pre-diabetes. That's really appalling as well. And then if you look at the cost of this, heart disease alone costs $219 billion a year, which includes the healthcare services, medicines, loss of productivity. And then 2018. This is from the American Diabetes Association. The total cost in 2018 of diagnosed patients with diabetes is $327 billion. And then look at the cost of healthcare. Healthcare costs $3.4 trillion every year is what the total cost is. And then US employers spend $900 billion on healthcare benefits. And then if you figure in lost productivity for US employers, that's another $500 billion. So you're looking at $1.4 trillion worth of cost for lost productivity and healthcare benefits, just that. So if we have a problem with, we always argue about who's paying for healthcare. It really should be, well, let's try to reduce the cost of healthcare rather than just trying to point the finger at who's got to pay for it. So, and that's what lifestyle medicine is all about. Treat the causation of these diseases. Okay, so why is health important? So let's start with that, and move this over here so I can see there. Okay, So health, if you look in the dictionary of what health means, and it's kind of it's not a very inspiring definition. It's lack of illness or absence of illness is the one of the definitions for health. And I don't really like that one so much. That one's not very positive, but I like this definition here that Dr. Sidney Garfield came up with, and he's the founding physician of Kaiser Permanente. He says, remember, good health is a way to get more out of your life, more energy, more enjoyment, more potential, more purpose, more life. So I like that much better. Okay, so you like my art? You can tell I'm quite the artist, right? So I'm calling this squaring the curve. So you heard my story. You hopefully feel a little inspired because you saw what it did for me and how much passion I have for this. But this is now I'm directing all my attention to you guys out there, and kind of coming at it from thinking about what's called squaring the curve. And what squaring the curve is you see on the y-axis up and down, you have health. And so the higher up the y-axis, the better the health. And then time is on the x-axis down below. So as you go from left to right, that's so down the bottom left that's when you were born. And then as we go to the right, and the X's are where we die. So this is a little bit of a morbid conversation here, but so this is what we have here: health and time. And so this is what I'm calling this is squaring the curve. And what I mean by that is the goal to have health is to, we're born healthy. As a baby, we're born healthy, and we want to maintain our health as long as we can and have good quality of life. And then squaring the curve means, okay, you have good health, and then you're like the blue zone people, for example, you're working out in the field, you're 104 years old or 98 or whatever you are, and you go to sleep one night and you don't wake up, and there's the squaring the curve. So you died down there, but you had good health, good quality of life all the way through, and then you just didn't wake up one day. That's actually the natural human condition. So humans are designed to live anywhere between 95 and 120 years. Genetically, that's what we're designed for. And we're not designed to have declining health and to get sick and then just kind of slowly pass away and suffer. We're actually, as a human being, we're designed to just be healthy and maintain health, and then our heart stops and we just stop breathing and we don't wake up. Of course, there's things that get in the way of that, infectious diseases and traumas and all the different types of causes of death. And, if you look at the causes of death and kind of, maybe go back 50 years or even 100 years and go to kind of maybe third world countries, that's kind of what you see is the top 10 causes of death are usually things like, poor sanitation and traumas and infectious diseases, parasites and bacterial infections and things like that. Those are the top causes of death. You look at ours are all chronic diseases that are preventable and reversible in many cases. And so what happens in most modern countries, including America, is you look at that down sloping line there. So, we're born healthy, and, usually in our teens and 20s, we probably, maintain pretty decent health. But then what happens, whether it's at age 30 or 40 or 50 or 60, depending on lots of factors, you start to get that slow decline there, that down sloping line. And then, you might fall a little bit short there. You see where you died a little bit sooner. And so I think the point I'm trying to make with this slide here is that what's happening, you might, die a few years earlier. And I actually have patients all the time that tell me when I, teach them about lifestyle medicine or whatever, and they say, well, I don't know, Scott, that seems like a lot of sacrifice. I have to make a lot of changes to my diet and lifestyle. I'm not sure I'm willing to do that. And, if that means I die a few years sooner, then so be it, because at least I, got to eat what I wanted and I didn't have to, make all these sacrifices. And I said, well, that's a valid point. And you're correct in that. You might, only die a few years sooner. But what I try to remind patients of, and I'm trying to remind you guys of, is, well, what about that downsloping line? Is that last 5 years, 10 years, 15 years? is that what you wanted for yourself? Did you achieve the goals you had in your life? Did you go do that traveling that you wanted to do? Did you see your grandson's graduation, your grandchild's wedding? Did you do all the things that you wanted to do in your life? And what was your quality of life for that 10, 15 years or 20 years, that downsloping line? That's what gets lost a lot is, you're spending all your days, you're not getting to do the things you want. You're going to doctor's appointments, you carry around a bag of pills, you don't feel well, and you just don't have the energy. You can't do all the things that you may have envisioned for yourself to do. And I think, that's really important to think about because, Charlie and I can talk to you all day long about, hey, you can get off medications. Hey, you can, avoid a heart attack, or if you had a heart attack or a stroke, you can prevent the next one. And there's motivation in fear of something bad happening that does give you a little bit of motivation, and it might help you for maybe 3 months, 6 months tops, is what studies show. Is even someone that just had a cardiac arrest and had to have a heart bypass, that you might get a good 3 to 6 months of motivation out of them to make changes because they don't want a bad outcome. They don't want something bad to happen. But that's fear, and fear is not a sustaining change. It's something to help you change for a sustained period of time. But what studies do show that will help you sustain change over the rest of your life and long term is joy of living, having pleasure in your life, doing the things you want to do, having value, purpose, all those things. So what I'm hoping you're starting to tap into yourself right now is what is your why? Because we're going to tell you all the how and how to do this, and we're going to give you the support with these classes and the groups that we're forming and the Facebook group and all the different things that we have to offer you with these classes. It's there, but if you don't have your why, what's your purpose for making these changes, then it's going to be really hard to actually do it and sustain it. So that's what I wanted to leave you with this particular slide. And one quick story before I move on to the next slide, I'll show you a video here that kind of is a visual of this squaring the curve. It's that a patient that actually sent me a picture. She sent it to my clinic, and it was this picture you're seeing in front of you. And then she drew a little stick figure down below the downsloping line there, and she has pushing it up like this. She wrote, "Look, Scott, I'm squaring the curve." And so I thought that was really cute. I would love to tell that story. But I'm going to show you this video. And it kind of is a visual depiction of this kind of downsloping line.
What will your last 10 years look like? Will you be quick enough for a game of tag with your grandchild? Strong enough to embrace every moment? Will you grow old with vitality? Or get old with disease? It's time to decide. The average Canadian will spend their last 10 years in sickness. Change your future at makehealthlast.ca.
Okay. Now I'm going to show you this 8-minute cartoon with Dr. Greger. So nutritionfacts.org is one of the websites Charlie and I play lots of videos from. And so I just wanted to give you this background of Dr. Greger and this whole lifestyle medicine thing and what this is all about. So check this out, Dr. Michael Greger. He's a family practice physician who dedicates his life and work to evidence-based nutrition.
It all started with my grandma. I was just a kid when the doctor sent my grandma home in a wheelchair to die. Diagnosed with end-stage heart disease, she'd already had so many bypass operations that the surgeons essentially ran out of plumbing. Confined to a wheelchair, crushing chest pain, her doctors told her there was nothing more they could do. Her life was over at age 65. But then she heard about Nathan Pritikin, one of our early lifestyle medicine pioneers, and what happened next was documented in Pritikin's biography. He talks about Frances Greger, my grandma. It was a live-in program where everyone was placed on a plant-based diet and started on a graded exercise regimen. They wheeled her in, and she walked out. In a few weeks, she was walking 10 miles a day, went on to live another 31 years till age 96 to continue to enjoy her 6 grandchildren, including me. Her miraculous recovery not only inspired one of those grandkids to pursue a career in medicine, but granted her enough healthy years to see him graduate from medical school. So it's really all thanks to her. During medical training, I was shocked to find out that this whole body of evidence on reversing chronic disease with lifestyle changes, opening up arteries without drugs, without surgery, was being largely ignored by mainstream medicine. Wait a second, if effectively the cure to our number one killer could get lost down some rabbit hole and ignored, what else might there be buried in the medical literature that could help my patients? I made it my life's mission to find out. That's what led me to start nutritionfacts.org. And that's what led me to write the book, How Not to Die. Surveys show people wildly overestimate the power of pills and procedures to keep them healthy. For example, patients believe cholesterol-lowering statin drugs are about 20 times more effective than they actually are in preventing heart attacks. No wonder most people continue to rely on drugs to save them. But our leading killers aren't caused by drug deficiencies. The dirty little secret is that most people surveyed said they would not be willing to take many of these drugs if they knew how little benefit these products actually offered. Whereas cleaning up our diets is not only safer and cheaper, but can be more effective in preventing, arresting, and reversing some of our leading causes of death because you're treating the actual cause of the disease. Each year, the CDC compiles the 15 leading causes of death, and so I have a chapter on each. How not to die from heart disease, how not to die from lung disease, how not to die from brain diseases, digestive cancers, infections, diabetes, high blood pressure, liver diseases, blood cancers, kidney disease, breast cancer, suicidal depression, prostate cancer, Parkinson's disease, and how not to die from so-called iatrogenic causes, which is essentially death by doctor. That's the first half of the book, and the good news is that we have tremendous power over our health, destiny, and longevity. The vast majority of premature death and disability is preventable with a plant-based diet and other healthy lifestyle behaviors. I didn't want to just write a reference book, though. Yes, there's thousands of citations to peer-reviewed scientific papers, but I also wanted to be a practical guide on translating this mountain of evidence into day-to-day decisions. And so that's what became the second half of the book. First, I started out with a traffic light system to classify everything to red light, yellow light, and green light foods. Though there are exceptions, I talk about the best available balance of evidence suggests the healthiest diet is one that minimizes the intake of meat, eggs, dairy, and processed junk, and maximizes the intake of fruits, vegetables, beans, split peas, chickpeas, lentils, legumes in general, whole grains, nuts and seeds, mushrooms, herbs and spices, basically real food that grows out of the ground. These are our healthiest choices. Some foods, though, have particular medicinal qualities, and so I then center my recommendations around a daily dozen checklist of all the things I try to fit into my daily routine. So, for example, I recommend a quarter teaspoon of spiced turmeric a day, a tablespoon of ground flax seeds, berries every day, greens every day. I talk about the healthiest beverages, the healthiest sweeteners, how much exercise to get. The whole daily dozen list with recommended serving sizes is available as free apps for both Android and iPhone. Just search for Dr. Greger's Daily Dozen. There's only one diet that's ever been proven to reverse heart disease in the majority of patients, this plant-based diet. If that's all a plant-based diet could do, reverse the number one killer of men and women, shouldn't that be the default diet until proven otherwise? And the fact that it can also be effective in treating, arresting, and reversing other leading killers like high blood pressure and type 2 diabetes would seem to make the case for plant-based eating simply overwhelming. Most deaths in the United States are preventable and related to nutrition. According to the most rigorous analysis of risk factors ever published, the Global Burden of Disease study funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the number one cause of death in the United States is our diet. The number one cause of disability is our diet, which is now bumped tobacco smoking to number 2. Smoking now only kills about 500,000 Americans every year, whereas our diet kills hundreds of thousands more. So obviously, nutrition is the number one thing taught in medical school, right? The number one thing your doctor talks to you about at every visit, right? How could there be such a disconnect between the science and the practice of medicine? Doctors have a severe nutrition deficiency in education. Most doctors just never taught about the impact healthy nutrition can have in the course of illness, and so they graduate without this powerful tool in their medical toolbox. There are also institutional barriers such as time constraints and lack of reimbursement. In general, doctors aren't paid for counseling people on how to take better care of themselves. Of course, the drug companies also play a role in influencing medical education and practice. Ask your doctor when's the last time they were taken out to dinner by Big Broccoli. Probably been a while. It's like smoking in the 50s. We already had decades of science linking smoking with lung cancer, but it was largely ignored because smoking was normal. Most doctors smoked. The average per capita cigarette consumption was 4,000 cigarettes a year, meaning the average American smoked a half pack a day. The American Medical Association was reassuring everyone that smoking in moderation was just fine. There's the same disconnect between the science and public policy. It took more than 25 years and 7,000 studies before the first Surgeon General report against smoking came out in the 60s. You think maybe after the first 6,000 studies, it could have given people a little heads up or something? Powerful industry. And today's meat, sugar, dairy, salt, egg, and processed food industries are using the same tobacco industry tactics to try to twist the science and confuse the public until the system changes. We have to take personal responsibility for our own health, for our family's health. We can't wait until society catches up to the science again, because it's a matter of life and death.
I know there's a lot of information in that, but that actual cartoon, that 8-minute cartoon we just watched, is on the website under the video section, so you can watch it anytime you want. Definitely a lot in there, and it's a really good summary. So, all right, let's talk a little bit about what lifestyle medicine is. I'm actually board certified in lifestyle medicine by the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. And its definition is the evidence-based use of therapeutic lifestyle approaches to prevent, treat, and oftentimes reverse chronic disease. And there's 6 aspects of it. We have these 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine: nutrition, so evidence-based nutrition, which shows a predominantly whole food, plant-based diet. It's somewhere around 90 to 95%. So if you look at the world literature, and this is actually really something that I was really surprised by when I studied this and got board certified and all that, is that we always have this impression that there was a lot of debate about what's the healthiest diet and what's the best way to eat, and it seems like there's such a controversy when you just read or watch TV or social media or whatever. But if you actually look at the academic nutrition throughout the world, if you look at the actual academics in nutrition throughout the world, there's really a major consensus, and it's a predominantly whole food, plant-based diet, 90 to 95%. But the reason that Charlie and I teach you how to do it 100% if you choose to, is because, well, that's the only diet, as Dr. Greger mentioned there, that's the only diet that's ever been shown to reverse heart disease. So mostly plant-based diet can slow the progression of heart disease, but it can't reverse it. You have to, only studies showing 100% going 100% whole food plant-based is actually shown to open up arteries and reverse heart disease. And then the other thing too is, because we're practitioners, if we were to follow a 90 to 95% whole food plant-based diet, kind of like the blue zones do, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute, then we probably wouldn't have even acquired any chronic diseases if we would have eaten that way our whole lives. But the patients that we see, and I see every day, they, as Charlie always says, 1 foot in the grave and 1 foot on a banana peel. So someone's already sick, already has chronic diseases, just doing it moderately, moderate dietary change gives you moderate results. And so, it takes a little bit more of a change to actually put these conditions in remission or in reverse and actually get your health back. So that's why we teach it that way. But I just wanted to let you know what the American College of Lifestyle Medicine teaches is 90 to 95%, because that's what kind of the world literature points towards. So you don't necessarily have to be 100%, but Charlie and I feel like people deserve to get the best that the science has to offer. So that's why we teach it that way. And then of course, exercise, sleep is very important as well, and exercise, stress management, things like meditation and mindfulness and things, and then having strong social connections, and then avoiding risky substances, obviously like tobacco, alcohol, drugs like recreational drugs, and even prescription drugs. Actually, the number 3 cause of death in this country is actually prescription medications, and that's just something that doesn't really get talked about. That's even taking medications as prescribed. So, medications are a tool that we have in our toolbox as medical providers, but you try not to use them unless you really have to. And if we can treat these conditions with lifestyle, that's better, because you're actually treating the root cause of the disease, as mentioned there in the definition of lifestyle medicine. So there'll be much more on all these different components in future classes. I just kind of wanted to give you an overview of that. Now, next, I have a video that kind of talks a little bit more about lifestyle medicine here I want to share with you.
Though I was trained as a general practitioner, my chosen specialty is lifestyle medicine. Yes, most of the reasons people go to see their doctors is for diseases that could have been prevented, but lifestyle medicine is not just about preventing chronic diseases, but also about treating them. And not just treating the disease, it's treating the causes of disease. If people just did 4 simple things: not smoking, exercising half-hour a day, eating a diet that emphasizes whole plant foods, and not becoming obese, that may prevent most cases of diabetes and heart attacks, half of strokes, and a third of cancers. Even modest changes may be more effective in reducing cardiovascular disease, high blood pressure, heart failure, stroke, cancer, diabetes, and all-cause mortality than almost any other medical intervention. The key differences between conventional medicine and lifestyle medicine is, instead of just treating risk factors, we treat the underlying causes of disease, as described in this landmark editorial. See, typically doctors treat risk factors for disease, such as giving a lifetime's worth of medications to lower high blood pressure, elevated blood sugar, high cholesterol. But think about it. I mean, high blood pressure is just a symptom of diseased dysfunctional arteries. Yes, you can artificially lower blood pressure with drugs, but that's not treating the underlying cause, which often comes down to things like diet and exercise, the penicillin of lifestyle medicine. Disregarding the underlying cause and treating only risk factors is somewhat like mopping up the floor around an overflowing sink instead of just turning off the faucet, which is why medications usually have to be taken for a lifetime. If a floor is flooded as a result of a dripping tap, it is of little use to mop up around the floor unless the tap is turned off. The water from the tap represents the cost of disease. The flooded floor, the diseases filling up our hospital beds. Yet medical students learn far more about methods of floor mopping than about turning off taps. And doctors who are specialists in mops and brushes can earn infinitely more money than those dedicated to shutting off taps. And the drug companies are more than happy to sell rolls of paper towel so patients can buy a new roll every day for the rest of their lives. Paraphrasing Ogden and Nash, modern medicine is making great progress, but just headed in the wrong direction. Preventive medicine is, frankly, bad for business. When the underlying lifestyle causes are addressed, patients often are able to stop taking medication or avoid surgery. We spend billions cracking people's chests open, but only rarely does it actually prolong anyone's life. In contrast, how about wiping out at least 90% of heart disease? Think about it. Heart disease accounts for more premature deaths than any other illness and is almost completely preventable simply by changing diet and lifestyle. And those same changes can prevent or reverse many other chronic diseases as well, the same dietary changes. So why don't more doctors do it? Well, one reason is doctors don't get paid to do it. And for no one profits from lifestyle medicine, so it's not part of medical education or practice. Presently, physicians lack training and financial incentives, so they continue to do what they know how to do, prescribe medication and perform surgery. After Dean Ornish proved you could reverse our number one cause of death, heart disease, open up arteries without drugs, without surgery, just with a plant-based diet and other healthy lifestyle changes, he thought that his studies would have a meaningful effect on the practice of mainstream cardiology. After all, a cure for our number one killer? But he admits he was mistaken. Physician reimbursement, he realized, is a much more powerful determinant of medical practice than research. Reimbursement more than research. Salary over science. Wealth versus health. Not a very flattering portrayal of the healing profession, but hey, if doctors won't do it without getting paid, let's get them paid. So Dr. Ornish went to Washington, arguing that, look, if we train and pay for doctors to learn how to help patients address the real cause of disease with lifestyle medicine, not just treat disease risk factors, we could save trillions. And that's just talking heart disease, diabetes, prostate, and breast cancer. The Take Back Your Health Act was introduced in the US Senate to induce doctors to learn and practice lifestyle medicine, not only because it works better, but here's the critical factor: physicians will be paid to do it. The bill died, just like the millions of Americans will continue to do with reversible chronic diseases.
I noticed Ron Wyden there, huh? Senator Wyden. That was actually back in 2009. So we made some progress since then. Dean Ornish actually, he actually got his program covered by Medicare. It took 16 years of trying to get it through Washington, and finally he has an actual Medicare. There's cardiac rehab. You've probably heard about cardiac rehab for people after they've had stents and bypasses and things like that. There's actually a new intensive cardiac rehab now program, and it's Dean Ornish's program with a whole food plant-based diet and meditation, exercise, so lifestyle medicine basically. It's now covered by Medicare, and so that's great. That's great progress. And then there's also now lifestyle medicine clinics all around the country, different programs. I go to these big conferences a couple times a year, and there's thousands of medical providers there, really inspired medical providers, many of which were thinking about quitting medicine because they were so burned out, and then they found lifestyle medicine, and now they're inspired because they actually see their patients get healthy. And so we're making lots of progress. Even Dr. Clapper, who you guys have heard us, Charlie and I talk about, he's actually been, before the pandemic anyway, he was going around to medical schools, lecturing about lifestyle medicine. There's actually the American College of Lifestyle Medicine is actually writing board questions that are related to lifestyle medicine. And so once they start getting that into the medical curriculum, then medical schools will start teaching about this stuff. So there's actually, programs right now where medical students can do culinary medicine. They learn about nutrition and lifestyle medicine and how to cook and teach their patients how to cook healthy foods. And so we're making lots of progress. So I know it was kind of maybe a little bit depressing, some of those videos there, but when you see how powerful it is and how it's not mainstream, and it's still not mainstream in medicine, but we're making progress. So I want to give you guys hope on that. So before I move into the resources and show you different things on the website on how to do this, anyone have any comments or any questions so far? I mean, what I want you to take away from this class so far is just, okay, you see the power of it, and you might be thinking about your why. Why do I want to make changes, and what your goals are for your health, and then next coming up is the how. So you got the what, and you got the hopefully thinking about the why, and then we'll work on the how. Any questions, comments before I jump into these different resources? Is there anything in the chat? I can't see the chat. So anything in the chat, Charlie?
I don't see anything in the chat. We're up to 47 people in the room though, so it means there's a number of new people.
All right, well, let me go get out of this PowerPoint for a minute. See, I'm going to go over some of these different resources here. I gotta move this over here. Let's go to the website. Get this thing.
Do you want to go over one more time how you get to the website for those people who just jumped on?
Yeah, so in the class email, I can go back to the class email here. Go to my emails. Here's the class email that comes out every week, every Sunday. And so here's the link to the website right here. It's just www.livelifestylemedicine.com. And so you just click on that and get to the website here. And so first thing I'm going to show, I mean, I have a tutorial that's recorded here, so I won't waste time on that, but this is an 11-minute tutorial here on the homepage where I give you a full tour of what's on the website. But today, in the introduction, I want to kind of go over some of the specific handouts and things that you have available to you on here. And so I wanted to go first to resources, and I want to show you different. So if you hover over resources and go to handouts, there's all kinds of handouts here that we use for the different classes. The first one I want to highlight here for the introduction class is what I call the traffic light handout. So it's down here. You click on traffic light handout. You can enlarge it by going to downloading the PDF here. And so this is a little bit different. I'm going to be talking about, you might have heard Dr. Greger talk about green, yellow, and red light foods in the cartoon video there. That's a little bit different than what this is. So it's similar, but it's slightly different. And so I want to go over the little bit of the difference here. So I always like to give this to the very first thing, because if you ever feel like, well, I'm not sure about all the science as you go through these classes and things, and you start to get confused with the science, or you kind of get lost in the weeds with a lot of the details that we talk about in the different classes. If you ever feel frustrated or overwhelmed at any point through this learning process, just fall back on the traffic light handout. That's all you have to do. It's this simple. So even patients I see every day that either have told me they're not interested in doing lifestyle medicine, or they're they just kind of, like when I do a preventative care exam, one of those Medicare physicals, you guys, a lot of you know what those are, the preventative care. I go over this handout with every single one of those visits, because this is actually just, it doesn't really matter how you eat as far as what type of diet you follow. It's just, hey, kind of follow these, try to push towards these basic tenets here. And what this traffic light handout is a little different from the green, yellow, and red light for Dr. Greger. So I'll give you this presentation on this one first. So this is really more for along the blue zone data. So if you guys have heard of the blue zones, so the blue zones are the 5 places on Earth that have the highest percentage of people over the age of 100, the centenarian people. And the 5 blue zones are Sardinia, Italy, Loma Linda, California, Icara, Greece, the Naya Peninsula in Costa Rica, and let's see.
Okinawa.
Okinawa, Japan. Yeah, thanks. Okinawa, Japan. And so not only do they live a long time, but they also have some of the lowest rates of things like diabetes, heart disease, cancer, dementia. So a lot of the chronic diseases we suffer, they're very small amount there, if at all, in those places. That's changing now, unfortunately. A lot of those places are becoming more westernized in their diet. So like Okinawa, for example, there's a call for the Okinawans to start eating the Okinawan diet, because they're starting to become more westernized and they're starting to get sick like we are. And so, but yeah, so this is really based on these percentages here are based on the blue zones for the most part. So you'll see green, red, yellow, and red there. So the red light foods are your meat, your cheese, your eggs, your dairy products, your oils, your processed foods, processed meats, things like that, refined sugars and flours. And in the blue zones, they eat some red light foods, but it tends to be just a few. It tends to be a little bit of fish, a little bit of chicken, a little bit of olive oil, an egg or two here and there, and a little bit of low-fat dairy. That really is the extent of the red light foods that the blue zone people eat. And it's only like 5 to 10% of their calories in a day. And so they really think of red light foods as like side dishes, condiments, flavorings. It's not really a major part of their diet. 80+% of their diet comes from whole plant foods, from fruits, vegetables. So you got your starchy vegetables, which would be like your potatoes and sweet potatoes, corn, squash, and then pretty much all the other vegetables that aren't starchy vegetables would be non-starchy vegetables, green leafy vegetables, lots of fruit, especially berries, and then beans, lentils, and peas, intact whole grains, which would be examples would be like brown rice and oats and quinoa, bulgur, amaranth, farro, all these ancient grains. You can go to the bulk bin at like Market of Choice or Winco, and you can see all these intact whole grains, mushrooms, herbs, and spices. So that's 80+% of what these healthy populations are eating. And then maybe another 5 to 10% in the yellow light category, which are like nuts and seeds, nut butters, avocados, coconuts, olives, dried fruit, pasta, whole grain bread. So it's like this would be like a whole wheat pasta or a lentil pasta or a quinoa pasta. So not a white flour refined pasta, but would be in this yellow light category. So I just even if you're new to this, just hey, that's the first place to start, is just to start trying to eat more green light foods, yellow light foods kind of in a moderate amount, and try to reduce those red light foods as much as you can. And then it just kind of gives you a visualization. And then with more things, with more classes going forward and more handouts I'm going to go over here in a minute, you'll kind of see what this looks like. And then the next thing I want to show, okay. And then the next one I want to show is what is a whole food plant-based diet? So I kind of described it so far in class, but this is a handout that comes from Forks Over Knives, just as an article that talks about what is a whole food plant-based diet. So you can read through that if you're new to these classes. So that's here. So that's that. And then next one I want to show is meal building basics. And this is another one where, so what inspired me to make this handout is basically I kind of struggled a bit when I first started. So I was doing this on my own. My wife wasn't interested at the time. So for the first 3 years, I ate this way myself before my wife came around. And it wasn't until I got my wife to watch Forks Over Knives, the documentary, if some of you have heard of that, it wasn't until she watched that she was willing to make a change for herself. But for the first 3 years, I bought cookbooks and I was trying to do this on my own, and I really kind of struggled a bit. And so if somebody would have given me a handout like this back then when I was starting, this would have been great, because it just goes over, I won't spend time reading through it now because you guys can read through it later, but it just gives you the basics of how to build plant-based meals, not even really following a recipe necessarily, just talks about, kind of the philosophy of starting with a starch and then adding vegetables. Talks to you about how to saute your vegetables without oil, using just like vegetable broth or vegetable stock. Even just water. And then on the flip side of the handout, on this side, it actually just gives you examples of breakfast, lunches, and dinners with different themes of what a whole food plant-based meal looks like. And so really, I recommend reading through that, especially if you're new to this, because this is even, again, not even following a recipe, just what can I throw together that kind of meets this philosophy of whole food plant-based nutrition. So I got that one. And then I want to show you, okay, the plant-based quick start guide is next, and then I'll come back to some of the other resources. So the plant-based quick start guide, I have it on as a electronic version, because it's actually, I can't put it on the website because it's being sold by the Plantrition Project. So the Plantrition Project is a nonprofit, and they actually put on the International Plant-Based Healthcare Conference every year. And I've been to it many times, and where there's 1,000 medical providers there and everything. And so this is really good. If any of you are interested in receiving it, the electronic version, I can send it to you. So you just have to email me. So if you just send me an email, scott@aol.com, I can forward you the electronic version. I just can't put it up on the website because it does, it's basically copyrighted, but I can share an electronic version. or just for the handful of people that tend to want it. But I'm just going to run through what's in here, and this is kind of like your utility book, so to speak. And it's written by dietitians and lifestyle medicine physicians, and you can see Dr. Greger's there. He's a contributor, and there's so much great information in it. So the first few pages are just kind of talking about what a whole food plant-based diet is and why should we change, what's wrong with our health, why should we make these dietary changes. So it kind of giving you information about that. And then talks about, again, what a whole food plant-based diet is. So you can read through that. And it gives you the food groups and nutrients to increase, food groups and nutrients to limit. So it kind of just breaks it down for you there. And then it actually has this also a section on plant-based for kids, very brief here. So any of you that have children and you want me to send you, there's actually also a pediatric version of this. So it's mostly the same, but there is a lot of tweaks and things for breastfeeding, pregnancy, infancy, childhood. There's actually a whole pediatric version of this. And I can also, for those of you that want that one, you could also email me and I can send you this electronic version of the pediatric one as well. And then it talks about a little bit about cancer. And then there's a section on myths and facts. So the protein myth, what about soy? Gives you information about calcium, a little bit of truth about the dairy products, iron, omega-3 fats, vitamin B12, hydration. So there's just so much information in here, but I'm just kind of running through quickly so you can just kind of see what support and information you can get here, and how to incorporate it into your daily routine, how to build plant-based meals, what to stock your pantry with, meal planning and grocery shopping. There's a section on organics, as far as you may have heard of the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15 before, but those are basically the Dirty Dozen are the 12 foods that are more important to spend a little more money and buy organic, and the Clean 15 are the ones that are not as important to buy organic, so you could probably save a little money by buying the regular on those. So that's there. Some plant-based cooking tips and tricks, ingredient swaps here. What are you going to use instead of milk and cream and butter and eggs and cheese? A section on making it family friendly. A section on plant-based on a budget, how to make this cheaper. And I always talk about, I have I'll probably share it at some point. It's a nice graphic of, people think, well, eating healthy, there's this myth that eating healthy is expensive. It's like, well, yeah, if you go to vegan restaurants, if you buy a lot of processed vegan food, that's expensive. But if you're eating fruits, vegetables, beans, bulk grains, bulk beans, just buying whole foods as they grow in nature and eating the way that we're trying to teach, it's actually really cheap. It's actually less expensive. But if you're eating a lot of convenience foods and things like that, then it's not, then it can be expensive. And then it also gives you some tips on dining out. So what kind of things can you order if you do find yourself needing to eat at a restaurant? Here's some tips there. There's also traveling. So what kind of tips for traveling, how to deal with social situations. And I think this one's are really, really helpful, really nice, because especially we just came out of the holidays and a lot of us, always feel some trepidation about that, about, not, you don't want to come off as judgy, you just want to do your thing. And so it gives you lots of good tips on how to navigate social situations when you're trying to eat this way. And then there's a section on healthcare, how, kind of like the slide I had at the beginning with healthcare problem and how we could really save a lot of trillions of dollars in healthcare costs by moving in this direction. Then there's a section on the environment as well. There's so many different whys. I talked about finding your why at the beginning. Some people are doing it for health. Some people are doing it because they love animals. Some people are doing it because, well, they know it's better for the planet. So it's good for the animals. It's good for the environment. It's good for your health. It's just good for so many things. And Charlie and I even had a class on pandemics and our food system is contributing to why we're having these viruses that are jumping from animals to humans, and that's all part of it. Is the big agribusiness and stuff. That's actually a contributing factor as to why we have this current pandemic is our food system and our relationship to how we raise food to eat. So there's lots of different whys as to why you might want to do this, but So that's another good section. And then that's it as far as this handout. So you can email me if you want a copy of that. Next thing I want to show is back to the website here. Let's see here. I want to go to some of the other resources. So if you hover over resources, again, I went to the handouts earlier. Now there's a whole list of cookbooks here. So if you're just want to start off with a cookbook or two or whatever, even if you are feeling overwhelmed by the changes and everything, again, you can just fall back on the traffic light handout and the meal building basics I went over. But if you're ready for a cookbook, these are just some of our favorites. You know, don't just limit yourself to these, but these are just some of the ones that Charlie and I have used and like. And there's actually a link to Amazon if you want to pick them up. I know a lot of these are available at the library as well, so you don't necessarily have to buy them. And then there's also under resources, we have recipe websites. So I have 6 different websites here that have free recipes on them as well. Forks Over Knives, Dr. McDougall, the Engine 2 diet. This plantchef.com is I think there's gonna be more recipes and stuff on that coming soon. I think right now it's a newsletter right now, temporarily right now, but I'll be putting on recipes. And this one's a subscription. I'm not sure how much it costs. It's a few bucks. It's not very much, but they can send you. There's ones where if you pay a small fee, you can get recipes sent to you every week with the shopping list and all that kind of stuff. But there's also some of that in some of these other ones too. But yeah, here's some other recipe websites, because it's really important that you don't search on your own necessarily, because it can be tricky sometimes. So you don't want to, if you are going to search on your own, like, you know, through like Twitter or Instagram or some other social media platform where you're getting recipes, you don't want to search for vegan, because vegan a lot of times often will have lots of oil and salt. And so you want to be whole food plant-based if you're going to search on your own. But that's one of the reasons, because of that caveat, that's one of the reasons we try to give you a bunch of resources on the website here with the recipe websites and the cookbooks and things. And then we also have apps here, apps to download. So you come down here, and this just has the Dr. Greger Daily Dozen app here. So if you have an iPhone, you can download it here for free, and it's free. And Android, you can click here and it's free. If you're not a techie person, if getting the Daily Dozen app seems overwhelming, or you're not too sure on the technology aspect of it, I also have under resources here, and it's actually back here under handouts again. And it's good this class is recorded, so you can come back if I'm going too fast here. You can watch it again. But anyway, as far as the Daily Dozen app goes, if you're feeling a little bit too intimidated by that, there's actually the evidence-based eating guide. It's right here. And this is basically the paper version or the electronic version of Dr. Greger's Daily Dozen. So if you click on that, here it is. And so it's pretty much all here, and it's the whole traffic light system again. And so I mentioned how his traffic light system is different than the one I showed earlier, because the one I did earlier was mainly for the blue zones and what I present to all patients in the clinic. Dr. Greger's daily traffic light system is a little bit different. I mean, it's very similar, but like green light foods or green light foods on both my traffic light hand and with Dr. Greger. The difference is, Dr. Greger he's not pushing a vegetarian agenda, a vegan agenda of any kind. He's just, what's the science say that's going to give us the best health? What's the preponderance of the balance of the evidence say right now, today, for what's the way we should eat? And so you'll notice his yellow light group is different than the one I had on that I showed you earlier. And so green light foods, as I mentioned, are the same all the way around. But yellow light foods, look at that. He says processed plant foods and unprocessed animal foods. And so it's like bread and steak, for example. So he's not, the other traffic light handout didn't have any animal foods on the yellow light. But for here, he does, because what the science shows is, well, okay, let's just take this as an example. Some grass-fed beef, for example, is yellow light, but a red light food would be like sausage and bacon because it's processed meat, right? So you should really avoid the processed meat, but the yellow light food is, you know, like a grass-fed beef, for example, would be a yellow light food, not a red light food. But the thing is, the thing to remember though is a red light food also can be a processed plant food. So like chips, you know, French fries, you know, refined sugars and flours, those are vegan products, right? I mean, we all know junk food vegans, you know, donuts are vegan, French fries are vegan, Oreo cookies are vegan. So all those foods I just mentioned, those are red light foods, and you know, grass-fed beef would be a yellow light food. So he's not, you know, vegan and saying, hey, you know, follow a vegan diet. He's just saying, here's what the science says about these different kinds of food. And so, but I would say, okay, but you know, grass-fed beef is still not a green light food, so you should probably not eat it very often if you're going to eat it at all. And we could go in these classes going forward, you'll see the science as to why even grass-fed beef's not the best choice. You know, there are some health risks and downsides to even eating that. So it's just but everything is like, in these classes, you'll always be, well, I thought fish was healthy, or I thought this food was healthy. Well, it's like, it's always in relation to what, as compared to what. So, you know, a food is, you know, to say a food is healthy or not is like, well, compared to what? So just for example would be, well, if a bacon double cheeseburger versus fish is better, is healthier than a bacon double cheeseburger, but doesn't necessarily make fish healthy. So fish is not healthy compared to potatoes, sweet potatoes, beans, whole grains, fruits and vegetables, nuts and seeds. So all those green light foods are still healthier than even the fish or the grass-fed beef, for example. But so it's always going to be is something healthy? Well, compared to what? We could always do better. And kind of what the theme of the traffic light system with Dr. Greger here on the you know, the daily dozen that he's trying to get you to do here is, he's just trying to say, hey, let's just try to integrate more green light foods, more whole plant foods into your diet as much as you can, and maybe it'll crowd out some of the bad stuff. And so that's kind of the theme here, and what the point I wanted to make with this evidence-based eating guide. And so then again, this is basically the alternative version of the Daily Dozen app, which you can get on your phone through the apps. So I think that is all I have for the resources that I wanted to share today. Where are we at with time? Oh, good. So got 15 minutes or so. So that's all I really wanted to show you here. Does anyone have questions about anything presented today so far? The website, the resources. Oh yeah, I just also wanted to mention, here, let me share one more time. Let's see here. Share one more time here. You might have noticed on the class email or not, we also have a Facebook group that just started a couple weeks ago. Two of our class attendees, Lisa Chick, who actually also can help you do some health coaching for free, one-on-one, and then Vonda, they came up with this Facebook group. So you can click here on the group email and can join. We have, I think we're up to like 82 people there now. So you can, if you're into Facebook, we have this live lifestyle medicine Facebook group as well, so that you can join and get support, and people are sharing recipes and all kinds of educational materials there as well. Anything you want to add before we open to questions, Charlie?
No, I'm good so far. I want to give everybody a chance. We have a number of new members, and I'll have my opportunity next week to share my own introduction. So maybe we can hear from either some of the new members that have questions or all.
And I see some people have some direct messages to me in the chat. Just make sure, yeah, if you want the electronic copy, just send me an email. Don't send in a message in the chat, because I won't be able to, once this meeting's over, I won't be able to see it. So just send me an email if you haven't gotten the weekly emails and you think you're on the list. Just again, send me directly an email to my email, and I can make sure you're on the email list, as well as send you the electronic version. And then Lisa put her a link to the Facebook group, and I think she'll probably put in her email if you want to reach out to her as well. So I hope that was helpful, and I hope you leave today just trying to find your why. I mean, that's I think the biggest takeaway, and hopefully I can inspire you to do that search within yourself to have your reasons for wanting to change. Questions, comments, anything?
Do the new folks know who Lisa is?
Yeah, go ahead and introduce yourself, Lisa.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lisa. I am a second year osteopathic student, actually in Pomona in Southern California. Well, I've been working with Dr. Ross and Scott for the past few months and have had the opportunity to work with some of you one-on-one. And I'm interested in learning more lifestyle medicine and nutrition. And as you now know, it's hard to get a lot of that in medical school with everything else that we have to learn. So I've been getting it here and it's been a lot of fun. So it's complete, and then it's a great experience for me, and I've been able to see a lot of you achieve some of your own lifestyle goals. So if you're interested, email in the chat, and always here to help and read through some of the resources and see what fits for you.
I'd like to add a little bit that since Lisa cut out a little bit, she's a second-year medical student, and she has helped a number of people in their transition. And so I'd encourage you, if in any way you'd like some additional support, look at her email in the chat room and send her a note, and she will support you and we'll work together to help you on your journey. Let's see, there was another question in the chat. I think there was another question in there. Maybe it was not. Okay, so we're still waiting for, like some of the people who are new to the class to ask us, where do you get your protein? It's a common question and those kinds of things, and we're going to answer that as the weeks tick by. But if you have anything specific now you're interested in, don't be shy. No one's a policeman here, and you're not going to get a ticket or be belittled. We're here to share information. And okay, so we have somewhat of a shy group then. That's okay. It'll get better with time as we keep doing this. I guess we want to hear from another member before we go. It's getting close to the end of time, so maybe we could get an update from Velvet, how things are going with you.
Things are good. I just started classes and I'm stressed out again, but anatomy is not fun.
You started nursing classes.
Yeah, just prerequisites. I'm almost done, but
Well, you're gonna do fine. You just keep at it.
But food stuff is good. Just keep pushing along. That's all I'm doing. So, Scott, thanks for sharing your story.
You're welcome.
It's amazing that you rode that far on your bike.
Oh yeah.
I couldn't imagine.
Yep. I've ridden 100. I have a journal. I've actually ridden 127,000 miles on my bicycle since 1986.
Wow.
Yeah. Yep.
That's amazing.
There was a lot of years I didn't ride hardly at all because I was running. Like when I was in PA school, I was running, not riding the bike. So there's a lot of years where I had maybe just a few hundred miles or something. So I had a lot of years close to 10,000 miles, like almost 10,000 miles in a year sometimes. That was back when I was racing. But,
And you still ride your bike now?
yeah, just just mostly commuting to work, and then like usually a little bit longer ride on the weekend if it's good weather or whatever. And or if I train for a tour, sometimes I'll do some bicycle tours with some buddies of mine. And I've ridden up and down the Oregon coast and crossed Oregon and Idaho and down to California. So I do more of the just recreational cycling and touring nowadays.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, guys.
Thank you, Velvet. So Dr. Eric Colgrove, some of you may have kids in your family, and you might like to know that we have support from the Department of Pediatrics, or at least our pediatrician. Eric, you want to say a word or two?
Oh, just that, the best time to sort of get kids eating right is when they're kids, or getting people eating right is when they're kids. So definitely, I've learned a lot from you guys and from other resources about this way of living. And my thought in the past year and a half has been, how do I apply this to children? And one thing I wanted to say also, the pediatric plantrician guide is not, there's no restriction on it. So it is, if you can Google it, the pediatric plantrician guide, and actually, Scott, you may want to put that on the website, is you can actually put a link to it. It's free.
Okay, yeah, at least the regular adult one, when I went to one of the plantrician conferences, they gave me one electronic version and it had my name on it and it said copyrighted, so I couldn't, so at least with that one, I didn't have permission to put it on a website or anything like that. So.
Yeah, the adult one is $2.99 and the pediatric one's free.
Okay. But I also put Eric's information. So on the website under About Us, if you click on that, that has a little background on Charlie and myself, and then we have Eric there. So he has his email here. If you have any questions, nutrition related questions about pediatrics and families, he's a great resource.
Yeah, feel free to ask me anything, to email me. Okay.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, and also I want to say I just really appreciate that. I appreciate both you guys, but I really think that's a wonderful starting place. The introduction to how Scott got involved in all the how, why, and what of how to do this. I think it's just a wonderful starting point. So I look forward again to hearing about Charlie's introduction next week.
Thank you, Eric. So Jerry, you've been around the classes for a number of months, and we have appreciated your input also. Same way with Nancy, same way with a number of people who are in the group, Helen. And you just keep coming back for more and more. Vonda also, and helping with the Facebook, we appreciate that, and Meryl. I'm just looking through some of the names here, and even Faye has been around a lot. So we recognize your, I guess we're grateful for your continuing support, and you keep coming back. So thank you.
I hope so, because I feel like a groupie.
Well, anyway, it does our hearts good to have you around.
It's what I've been looking for since I was in the 6th grade. And like you talked today about information that was only 7 years old. See, so you have to come to these classes. Why don't they have this class for medical students? You got this class for medical students.
Yeah, that was my
Just
question.
let them watch
forever.
this.
Yeah, so true.
We try to encourage the medical students to come, it's not part of the curriculum and they are kind of geared into test taking. Lisa Chick falls out of the, she's in that extraordinary category of putting in extra time and really trying to expand her knowledge. And there's an occasional other person, but not quite as persistent as she's been. So we keep encouraging them to come to class.
Jerry, I found those feeds where you said down to earth.
Marcia, glad to hear that. Okay, is there anything else that we can add for the meeting before we terminate? We've been at this an hour and a half. Done pretty well. Thank you, Scott, for that introduction, and we'll go at it again. It's always interesting. I enjoy hearing it every time. And we've heard it a few times together now.
Yeah.
But it's always good. And so I'm gonna kind of end the meeting unless there's someone else who wants to say one more comment. I'll end the meeting and we'll see you all back here in a week. Yeah, there's someone.
I have a little bit of a humble brag if anyone wants to hear it.
Yeah, sure.
I started exercising every day, doing daily exercises, and today is the 365th day.
Well, kudos to you. Congratulations. You worked out, and doing that every day gets you into the habit. And we're trying to encourage people to get into good, healthy habits, and exercise is definitely on the same path. So what you eat, how you move throughout the day, the chemicals you choose, and how you deal with stress are what are going to either make you healthy or lead to death or illness, perhaps. So, congratulations.
Thank you.
And Dr. Ross, I think you should tell everybody why you're the perpetual motion machine. Maybe the new people don't see you moving and understand what you're doing.
You mean the issue about Corky?
No, just how you're always on your treadmill.
Oh, I thought you were talking about when I was a kid. My nickname was Corky because I used to bounce up and down like a cork in water, always in motion. So since it's not that, I think what you're talking about is the motion connected with what Dr. Greger taught me, and that's stand on the treadmill and walk on it instead of sit at a desk. So move more and sit less, and we'll be demonstrating that intermittently as time goes by.
Makes us dizzy watching you.
It's not Parkinson's yet. The movement. All right, everybody, it's been great. We'll see you next week. Thanks for coming. Look forward to having you again.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you all.
Thank you.
You're
Terrific
welcome.
start.
Thank you.